Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to Advocacy Day. We are coming to you today from the council office and several other places before the community living rally. This is really cool. So, my name is Emily Rogers, and I am the Director of Public Policy for the DD Council. And I am just really excited today that we're all getting together and getting excited about why community living is important, and it's not raining. So just hold a good thought for us that are going to be on the Capitol steps a bit later in the morning. And I'm also joined today in different places by Eric and Sean as well. And so I just wanted to give you a couple of reminders for today. You'll want to use the question and answer box for any questions you have. It can be found in the More menu, depending on how you're accessing Zoom. We would prefer you only use the chat today for the important links and for those that need it for accessibility reasons. We prefer that you use the question and answer for questions, and we encourage you to avoid long discussions in the chat because it's distracting. We will be taking a few questions during the program, but due to the time, we may not get to your particular question. And if you have other questions, you can stay for just a bit after the program, and we can answer more questions. We also need you to click on the globe icon in Zoom and select it if you want to hear today's program in English or Spanish. And this will help with our interpretation services. And then we want to, I don't remember what this one is. We want you to encourage you to speak slowly so that the interpretation services can correctly get your words to folks who need it in Spanish. And just thank you for coming today, and we hope you learned something. So next is I think it's Sean for the introduction to the topic.
Hi, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Sean Latham from SAIL, or Self-Advocates in Leadership. SAIL is a self-advocacy coalition for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, I/DD. SAIL offers the information and assistance people with I/DD need to speak up and be heard in state government. Members can learn how to let legislators and state agencies know what they think about issues such as housing, transportation, jobs, quality services, and health care. If you would like more information about SAIL or learn how to join us, please talk to myself or Jessica Renner, our administrative coordinator, after. Today's topic is all about supporting people with disabilities in those communities. As the summary of our one-pager states today, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, I/DD, deserve and have the right to live in the community and have the services and support needed to lead a meaningful life. It is everyone's civil right, including those with I/DD, to be able to live in their community of choice. This includes but is not limited to finding housing that is accessible and affordable for people on limited fixed incomes. This means having reliable transportation services to help people with I/DD get to where they need to go. Finally, This means having adequate services to assist people with IDD in the home, at school, at work, or in the community. Today you are going to hear a variety of speakers talking about various aspects as it comes to living in the community. We will hear about how getting access to accessible housing that is also affordable for those on fixed incomes is key for those wanting to be independent. Some individuals will choose to live on their own, others may choose to live in small group housing environments. You will also hear from a speaker about transportation. Having a house is a great thing as long as you can drive, but if you can't drive, having a reliable transportation system is needed to help people get to the store, to work, to school, or to just go out and have some fun. We all need time to go out and have fun with friends, don't we? We will hear about why our equipment matters when we go places, especially in times of emergencies. And we will hear why people with I/DD want to live in a community setting and not in segregated institutions. In addition to today's program, many of us are here in Olympia to do a rally at the Capitol steps at 1 p.m. We hope if you are down here, you will come and help us spread the message that community matters. We are also hoping to hear from a few legislators at today's rally, so please join us. I will mention too, we have 2 watch parties going on today. One here at the Arc of Washington and another at the Washington State Developmental Disabilities Council office. We are so glad to have everyone here to advocate. Another topic being addressed today that you will hear about is the services and supports people with I/DD receive. We know that in Washington state about 1 to 3% of the population has an I/DD. This comes out to around 170,000 individuals. Of that, 61,272 individuals receive services from the Developmental Disability Administration. Others like myself receive similar services through Aging and Long-Term Support Administration. These 2 administrations are key in supporting people in the home, at work, and in the community. Programs such as in-home care, supported living, and job coaching and other employment supports help people, especially adults, remain in the community and out of costly institutions. We will hear today stories about why these programs are so vital to keep around. Last week, Governor Ferguson released his early plan to deal with the state budget deficit. Unfortunately, yes, we do have a deficit this year, which makes our job at advocating a little more challenging. The deficit amount seemed to be a different number, depending on who is saying what it is. According to Governor Ferguson, it's $15 billion over the next 4 years. Other Democratic leaders say $12 billion. Either way, those numbers are pretty big. Now there are many factors of why the deficit is so high. First, more individuals are requesting services. Also, services cost more now, due to inflation. And then also they overestimated how much revenue would come in from taxes. Finally, I've heard that over the previous couple of years, new programs and projects also added to the deficit. Part of that too is our state got a little more money during the pandemic, that is now gone and are stopped. Ferguson has proposed $4 billion in new budget reductions and said he supports another $3 billion in savings former Governor Jay Inslee proposed in December. This is just a start and we expect more cut ideas to come out. Now I need to remind you that while the governor can propose cuts, it's our legislature that actually creates the final budgets. So as of right now, all of Ferguson ideas are proposals. In his proposed cuts, we see a lot of state projects that were passed in the last 2 years be delayed or canceled. We also see administrative cuts, state equipment cuts, and we see some travel cuts for state employees. He has also asked state employees to take 1 day off each month for, I believe, the next 4 years. As it relates to our service, we do see some reductions to programs like School to Work, stopping programs like Meaningful Day, and unfortunately eliminating many provider rate increases that makes an even bigger problem for many providers trying to stay in business. On the positive side, there are talks to reduce our state institutions from 4 to 2. I will address that a little later. And as of right now, we don't see many cuts to waiver services that supports people in the community, which is a good sign, but stay tuned. If you don't hear anything else today, please hear this. Your voice matters as our legislators work on the state budget. As all of our speakers today will tell you, you'll need to share your personal story and explain to your legislators why the services you receive is important. This is not only true at the state level, but also at the federal level where we might see cuts to vital programs such as Medicaid. So as I wrap up, please know, as you listen today to our speakers, living in the community isn't just about one thing or one kind of supports. It's about having the right people in your life, having a variety of supports, and having those services and supports work well with each other. Thanks.
Thank you. Hey.
Yeah. Sorry, the unmute situation is harder on the big screen. So next on the agenda, we have Mike Guntala from SAIL, who's going to talk about transportation, but I think it's a video, right, Sean?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, please give me a minute to load it because I have one screen at the
Sure,
moment.
Yes, it is because you did me
Uh,
the other day.
sure,
yeah, doesn't give me a minute, guys.
no problem.
It's a little bit harder with one screen today. My MP, okay. Now, I need to go back to Zoom, CV plan. Can people see that?
Can people see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay, here we go.
I'm Mike Guntala. I'm a self-advocate. We need good transportation, especially in outside the city limits. We need to get to doctors, grocery stores, and to our jobs. I'm in a wheelchair. Can't get to a bus stop. People like me need door-to-door service. Without good transportation, we will be stuck at home, isolated from our community. Thank you. Self-advocacy in leadership.
Oh dear.
We keep track of the bills going through the reservation.
Oh.
We call our lawmakers to make sure they hear the bill. Make sure we get make sure they do things that we need done. And that way they don't forget us as part of their yes, we make a difference, so our lives would be a lot better.
Yeah.
Because without all what we need is not all there. What's the other word I can use? All there. They don't know what we need. Only we do. So it's we just need to let them know what we need so they can keep when they pass the bills, they can keep us in mind.
Now here's the video.
Thank you, Mike. Excellent message. Excellent message for sure. So next in the agenda is Priscilla Wong from Allies in Advocacy, talking about living in the community.
My name is Priscilla Wong. I'm the co-vice president of Allies in Advocacy with the famous Mike Raymond. And so Allies in Advocacy is a 501c3 nonprofit fighting for the civil and equal rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We currently have a board of 8 people. Allies, due to its smaller membership, is better equipped to investigate issues at a deeper level. We also provide technical assistance to self-advocacy groups, and we work on projects that help those with intellectual and developmental disabilities lead meaningful lives. And with that, I'm going to tell a story of how I went, myself and my partner actually, we went from a skilled nursing facility into an adult family home, and now we live in independent living, not which we love, because it's within a walking distance or rolling distance for those who are in wheelchairs, who can get to multiple stores such as grocery stores, places to eat, and even entertainment, because transportation can be an issue, although where we live, it is very accessible on the bus line and very easy for paratransit services. We like this much better than the residential living that we were in, because, for example, we don't have to be told when to go to bed and when we are going to shower. Because, and so, well, I'm a bit sorry, I'm a bit nervous for public speaking, but that is my experience of being where I am now.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Okay.
We appreciate you.
Yeah. Another time, thank you for the believe I am there. So,
Next, we are going to watch a video with Corinna Lang or Corinna Fall, who will be addressing People First of Washington and a medical emergency story /.
give me 1 second. 2-year-old.
That's good.
Yeah, you doing You doing Guys. Are people able to see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sterling, Washington.
Oh. Sorry. Sorry. We're having technical.
We're having technical difficulties.
I might. While I'm fixing this, I'm gonna go do another speaker while I'm fixing this.
I'm going to pass back to Emily, who will tell why Medicaid matters to all of us.
So,
Okay, so you want me to go or are you ready?
yeah, let's go because
I think
Okay.
I could just go
He's
because
having technical.
he's
yeah.
having technical difficulties. So
Okay, okay.
Emily?
Okay, great. So I am here because I'm wanting to talk to you about Medicaid and why Medicaid matters. And so many of you might have seen that we are in the midst of a Medicaid Matters campaign. Um, and so you might have seen me giving some small short presentations about different parts of Medicaid and different things about Medicaid and why Medicaid matters. And one of the things, there's a couple things I wanted to talk to you today around Medicaid. And one of them is that that Medicaid, as many people know, how many people in the room, I can't see everybody, but just think, do you on some level rely on Medicaid for yourself or someone that you care for or a son or a daughter or there's so many of us in this community, in our community, that rely heavily on Medicaid. And right now, it's really, really critical that that you make your voice heard about why Medicaid matters to you, and that's on lots of levels. So one is the federal government, and the way that the federal government is operating at this moment is that they are in a situation where they're looking for funds to do other things with. And right now they're making decisions around the budget. And one of the big things that costs a lot of money for our country is Medicaid. And so lots of the Congress people and senators in Washington, D.C. are taking a look at Medicaid and going, gee, it costs a lot of money to provide the services that are included in Medicaid. And is there a way we can make it smaller and we can save some money? And it's really critical. Like, it's so important that you, as a recipient of Medicaid, speak out with a loud voice and say, no, this is really important to my life and the way that I live my life. And I want to live with these supports and this employment support and all of the things, right? And without your voice, they are more inclined to make choices that are not ideal for people living in the community. And so I just, like with everything in my body, I'm just like, please speak out about how Medicaid is critical to you. Legislators in our state need to hear it as well. As you might know, Medicaid is a federal and state partnership. So, like half of the money that we receive in our state for Medicaid comes from the federal government and half comes from the state. And so there's potential, that even if the federal government doesn't cut Medicaid, that potentially there might be some cuts to Medicaid coming through the state. And so there's a lot of, just different times and different situations where cuts might be coming through Medicaid, and every single program that is provided through Medicaid is essential. And so we need for each one of us to be as vocal as possible. You can write letters, you can send emails, you can call on the legislative hotline, you can do all the things like multiple times, do it and continue to do it, right? Because we know that in order to make a change stick, that we need to keep our voices up with these really critical programs. And Medicaid is one of those programs that it's hard to imagine what life would be like if there were significant cuts. And so right now is the time to be vocal about why that can't happen. So I would just encourage you, please, if you need assistance to, to create a video or to write some testimony or to write out your story, please reach out. I'm happy to help anyone who needs some sort of assistance in that way, or if there's, a meeting coming up and you want folks to be involved in our Medicaid Matters campaign, please reach out to me and we'll see if I'm able to help, or if we can get someone else if I'm not available. It's just really critical that you are a part of the voice that we need to have. And then also, just today I heard about the potential cut to telehealth that apparently began during the pandemic, which I remember when it began, and what a great service and advancement for folks with disabilities I thought it would be, so that you could receive your your appointments through through Zoom or through Teams, and not have to worry so much about transportation and all of the barriers in transportation. But telehealth is something that is funded federally, and is up for cuts. And so I would just say, if you are used to using the telehealth system, please also, again, make your voice heard often and loudly about the importance of that program, so that folks have options for connecting with healthcare providers, and we can eliminate some of the barriers for them getting good healthcare. So I don't know if folks have questions, or I'm willing to take questions if that's something that you're if there's any burning questions. I can't really see on the screen, so but I just wanted to continue to say, like, just please make your voice heard. Like, sitting by quietly right now is not a good idea. Like, we have to be vocal right now about these really important programs, and particularly in the situation of Medicaid. So anyway, I don't, I think I might still have a little time, but unless you want me, unless there's a question or something,
Yeah,
or Sean, if you
definitely.
just wanted the video or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see any hand up. So I'm gonna try the video again.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do 2 videos from Karina, and one of them is on Medicaid matters. So here we go. No, I thought I did it the wrong way. I forgot the sound.
And I work for People First in Washington. People First in Washington is a nonprofit organization that helps people um stand up for their rights. And it was a grassroots organization. It was started to help people get out of institutions, and they wanted their voices heard. And it was started in Sweden. And it was then moved from Sweden to Oregon, and then it was moved here to Washington. And that's just a little bit of our history. We have a lot more of our history in more detail. On our website, we have a timeline that you can look at that has dates and more history. It's psow.org. Again, they can go to our website and they can click on About Us. There's a button that says About Us, and either that or they can find my contact information on the website, and they can email me and I can help them. Last year, I had a medical issue in Olympia, and we had to call 911, and they got there, and they were not able to transport me to the hospital because I had an electric wheelchair. So they wanted to leave it on the sidewalk. Because I was at a restaurant. So I guess in a nutshell, I don't think first responders should be able to do that. So we are trying to work on a bill to be able to change that. And that's basically what happened. I actually had one of my friends we had rented a vehicle to bring me up to Olympia. So they ended up driving me to the hospital with that vehicle. Luckily we had rented it for the day anyway, but they were actually able to drive me to the hospital. But some people don't have that option if they don't have a vehicle that is accessible to get them to the hospital. I believe we need to have some conversations around this issue and figure out together the best way to fix it. I don't think they should be able to say no and just walk away and leave somebody on the side of the road that might be having a medical issue.
And the lawmakers.
I want them to be able to talk to people as well and be able to maybe set aside money to change vehicles, I don't know, but something's gotta change. We've gotta have vehicles that are big enough to take equipment with the people.
So that was one of the videos. I'm going to play a shorter video about Medicaid.
Okay. Sean's gonna play a shorter video about Medicaid,
Why it's important
why it's important.
for Karina.
Hold on a second, sorry, technical difficulties.
There we go. Karina Bale.
Medicaid matters because it pays for my wheelchair, it pays for my medicine, it helps pay to keep me able to do certain things. If I didn't have my medicine, I wouldn't be able to function. I don't think they should always try and cut Medicaid all the time. I don't think they should always go after people with disabilities the first time. They need to cut something.
Awesome. Okay. Sounds Karina. So now,
Our next speaker is Randy Hawk from the Community Residential Services Association to give us some updates and information.
Randy.
Hey everyone, my name is Randy Houck. I'm the Executive Director for Community Living. We're a nonprofit supportive living program, and we serve people in Asotin, King, and Yakima counties. And I'm sure all of you know, we've been on here a few different times, but we serve over 4,500 people with IED and DD to live in their own homes and their own communities across the whole state. And to us, that's something that's vitally important, that people have the right to live in their own communities, in their own homes. With this, we have about 14,000 direct support professionals statewide that are serving people in these situations, and oftentimes serving them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Funding definitely impacts what we do, and I think the previous speakers spoke on it very, very well. You know, the effects to Medicaid, or potential effects to Medicaid, and all those types of other fundings is something that we have to really pay attention to, and can definitely create bad things happening for you know, just for the state or as a whole. Funding impacts our ability to support individuals, and right now, currently in the state, there's about 400 people that are waiting to get into supportive living. that have already been approved for services, and they're just waiting for their time. And a lot of it has to do with our staffing shortages. And we, as a state, we need to come up with a way to align our funding with our need, and to be able to pay for direct support professionals to live in the community with other folks, and be able to have a living wage to be able to do that. So our staff don't have to get 2 and 3 different jobs just to make ends meet. The alternatives to supportive living are state institutions at 3 times the cost, and in today's budget, that just doesn't make any sense. And despite budget issues, as we know, inflation doesn't skip a year, minimum wage increases don't skip a year, and the support needed for people with disabilities don't skip a year either. And so we need to make sure that we have, and the state invests in a model that definitely supports people in the community. And as we all know, supportive living is the most cost-effective way to do so. I'll be putting a one-pager link in the chat box here in a minute. But we're asking for an increase of 3% for January 2026 and 2% on January 2027. And I know it kind of sounds crazy that we're asking for money at a time when the state deficit is $12 to $15 billion. But people that work as DSPs have the right and need to be rewarded for all the hard work and dedication that they do. So we have to have a system that at least gets them increases that match at least minimum wage, or the inflation that comes up every year. But I'll put that in the chat box, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sorry, I'm just thinking around. Are there any questions for Andy? No.
Any questions before we move on,
Uh,
or comments?
no. No. Well, thank you for coming. Andy. And next, happy living room.
Next up is Kyle Matheson, who will be addressing the need for housing.
Thank you, Sean. I'm live here in the ARC office, which has been a nice office so far. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about housing and about why housing is neat, and being in your, and also what being, as you heard from previous speakers about being in their own community, liking being in their own community. I love it where I live. I live by Bitter Lake in a senior high-rise building called SHAG, which is Senior Housing Assistance Group. And the building's called apartment building's called New Haven. It's in a nice neighborhood, close to shopping, etc., things like that in North Seattle, where I do live. But one of the biggest things about housing is you're being independent. Making your own independent mind means, but unless you really need some extra, like natural support, or somebody else supports you in other manners, but it gives you that independency. I know that Priscilla mentioned earlier today that her and her partner loves where they live now because they live in their own community, they love what they do, and they get to make their own decisions on what they want to do, etc. So I'm complimentary that way, but transportation does matter where you live in the community. It's because if you want to go from here to like a ball game, or from where you live to a soccer game or a ball game, or any type of outing, and you live near a bus line, which is nice. But living in a rural county area, in Snohomish County is tough, because that means you have to rely on access or another for alternative transport, unless they're not available, then you have to do another backup. But being independent and living in your own, in a community that you adore, instead of being stuck in a rehabilitation center, which thank God I've never lived in one, but I visited one for in the 80s to see what they were all about. But otherwise, and I was appalled at what they said, which I'm not going to say today. But otherwise, to me, is saying truly believe living in the community, because I lived in the community since the early 70s to present. And living from, all the way from being by the airport, Queen Anne, then I moved from Queen Anne out to Ballard. No, excuse me, to Olympia, came back, lived on First Hill for a short bit, and then to Ballard, and then from Ballard to where I live now in the Bitter Lake neighborhood, and I love it there because it's quiet. I occasionally hear sirens, but that's because the fire department is coming our way sometimes, like any typical neighborhood. But otherwise, it's a nice neighborhood, and it's like an ideal area and eventually, as people always say about Medicare, I'm on Medicare myself, Medicare, Medicaid, and it does help pay for medication, things like that. But it's tough when the government's gonna say, hey, about the telehealth. Medicaid matters because of the fact that if it affects your life personally, I'm getting off on two different tangents, but to me, it's how well you can be that independent, getting around, but you can't get around very well. It's to where you cannot get around that well, is where that telehealth does come in reliability so that it makes it easier on that person. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you for the time. I thank for all the previous speakers. And I believe I'm handing it back to Sean and introduce the next guest speaker.
No
Thank
way.
you very much for the time. Now, how I didn't speak too fast.
I'm gonna hand it to Eric.
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce the board president of the ARC of King County, Stacia Irons. We'll be touching on the ARC Legacy Center. Go ahead, Stacia. And you are muted.
Thank you, Eric, for that too. Can you see my screen? Let me start here. There we go. Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here and to share a brief overview of Connection Angle Lake, the first of its kind inclusive multifamily housing project, which will provide 26 units of affordable housing intentionally designed for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, for which the ARC of King County is the sole referral agent. On the ground floor of the building is our new headquarters, the ARC Legacy Center, which is an 11,000 square foot space. Connection Angle Lake is an innovative hub of consolidated services and affordable housing for the IDD community. I'm going to give you a little bit about the project background. It's a 7-story building. It's located adjacent to the Angle Lake Sound Transit Light Rail Station in SeaTac, Washington. This is a first of its kind partnership between a developer, Mercy Housing Northwest, and the ARC of King County to develop affordable housing for individuals with IDD. As I mentioned, the ARC of King County will be the sole referral agent for the units. And this is an inclusive model of 130 energy efficient, safe, affordable units spaced throughout the complex, providing residents with both autonomy and independence. There are services on site. Mercy Housing will provide residential services, as well as there will be access to the ARC of King County services. And the construction completion date, we are on track for a mid-June of this year completion. From the very beginning, Mercy Housing and the ARC partnered on accessibility design throughout the building. It was intentional. We worked together to identify and prioritize accessibility elements critical to inclusive housing. The 26 units include 7 fully compliant ADA Type A units and 19 Type B+ units. The IDD units are split between 30 and 50% AMI, and they range in size from studio to 3-bedroom units, which can accommodate individuals and caregivers, and families with an IDD family member with IDD, with a family member with IDD. Not only is there accessibility built in the units, but we built it in throughout the building. There's a picture of the accessible universal playground equipment that's being installed in the courtyard. There are auto door openers on entrances and in the common areas. For instance, in the lobby, the mailboxes have been lowered and protrude for wheelchair access. There are benches near the elevators. There are lowered counter heights in common spaces, and they even have built-in noise baffling treatments and wheelchair space for maneuverability in the laundry. This is, on this page, you can see some of the accessible features that are available between type A and type B plus units. The features vary by unit size and type of unit, meaning A or B plus classification. Some of the other great things that have been included is the bathroom door swinging out and not into the bathroom space. There's removable vanity casework in the kitchen, underneath the sink, and in the bathroom. And the grab bars have been installed, and in the units where they're not completely installed, the blocking has been included behind the wall for future installation. There are also dimmer switches in the living rooms and bedrooms. So we try to accommodate and build in accessible features for sensory issues as well. This is a type A plus unit. It's an example of a 1-bedroom unit. You can see the lowered counter height in this. The range controls have been placed on the front of the range. And another feature that's interesting is the outlets extend out from the wall for easier access from a wheelchair. We've also placed the electric switches on the front of the cabinetry. So again, you can access that. This is an example of a type B plus unit. It shows you a fully installed kitchen. You can see the side-by-side refrigerator for accessibility, and those are available in the larger units. You can also see the narrow counter depth of the counters. It gives you a great view of that. And on the left is a picture of the living space in this unit. It's just a corner of the living space. And out the window, you can see this project has a beautiful view of the Puget Sound out the window. This is a slide. On this slide is included the accessible bathroom features. You can see the grab bars that have been installed, the lower vanity height, as well as the accessible shower, roll-in shower with a flip-down seat, and the accessible shower head as well. And finally, Connection Angle Lake the housing application process opens on Monday, March 10th. It is going to be a first come, first served basis. And once the units are filled, individuals and families will be placed on a wait list. I've got the contact information, which I will also put in the chat, and you can contact via phone or email on or after March 10th. And the ARC staff stands ready to assist in the application process. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm very happy to be a part of this presentation.
Thank you, Stacia. Does anyone have any questions for Stacia, or if not, thank you, Stacia.
You're very welcome.
All right, our next speaker is Sean Latham. He'll be touching on why we need to live in a community and not in the institutions. Go ahead, Sean.
And here we go.
This is Sean. Institutions, specifically those made for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or I/DD, have been in our county since the 1800s. What was seen as a way to help people who had no or very little support back then quickly turned into rundown, out-of-the-way settings that restrict residents' rights, and in many instances are facilities that have seen a lot of abuse and neglect. Washington State has relied too long on these segregated and restrictive settings called residential habilitation centers or DD institutions. Only 454 individuals still live in the DD institutions, which is about 1% of those being served by the Developmental Disability Administration. Self-advocates and many of our community partners believe people with I/DD can be served better and more cost-effectively in the community. I want to share 4 myths people often talk about when we say shut them down, and how you might respond. Myth 1. Severity of disability. People say those who have the most significant disabilities can only be served in the institution. In reality, more people with I/DD live in the community and receive the same services and support that those in DD institutions. People receive catheter care, behavior supports, medical and dental care in the community. Myth 2. Cost comparison by setting. People say if those with I/DD move to the community, it would cost more. In reality, individuals in a DD institution cost between $1,400 to $2,100 a day compared to those in adult family homes that cost $176.81, those in supported living that cost $624.83, and those in state-operated living alternatives that cost $1,123.17. Myth 3. Benefits of community living. People say there are little to no benefits between those living in the community and those living in the institution. This could be further from the truth. When people move to the community, they can choose where to live, where to work, where to socialize, and who they want to get into a relationship with. In short, they have the independence and choice to plan their lives with the support they need to do so. Myth 4. Institutional closure and the impact on the economy. People say we should keep DD institutions open because if they close, it will hurt the local economy and those working there. People also say the workers all live very close to the institution. However, we know that in the different institutions, workers come from multiple cities and towns to work. In addition, we know people with I/DD live, work, and socialize in every community of our state, including those where the DD institutions are currently. Those who work in an institution can work for I/DD clients in their local area. It is also possible to keep state benefits if the worker applies to work at a state-operated living alternative. Lastly, many services used in the daytime, like medical care, dental care, therapeutic care, and even respite services, may still be provided in the area using the small portion of the current DD institution space. As you can see from these myths and others you might hear, people can and do live successfully in the community. I have experienced this myself, as early on some doctors told my parents to put me in a DD institution. Because my parents said no to them, I was able to go to college, get multiple jobs, sit on a variety of boards, and go have fun in my community. I still need support like many, but I receive those in the community. I bet you that if you ask other self-advocates, Drew would share similar stories. Therefore, this year, we are working to close 2 of our remaining 4 institutions, Rainier School and Yakima Valley School. There are 2 companion bills this year, House Bill 1472 and Senate Bill 5393. We need all of you to make your voice heard that we want to close down these institutions. Yes, for budget reasons, but even more importantly, it's a human rights issue. In addition to these bills, we have another important bill, House Bill 1130, which is a waiver prioritization bill. It helps people 45 and over get on waivers faster, especially if they want to transition from a segregated setting into the community. The bottom line, everyone, people with disabilities, belong in the community, and we deserve to be in the community, and let's shut them down. Thank you, 1130.
Thank you. Hi.
Thank you, Sean. That is great. Our next speaker is going to talk about the ARC bills, and that is Kathy Murahashi. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So we're about halfway through the legislative session now. And last Friday was this what we call the second cutoff. So if the bills had not made it out of what we call the money committees, that would be Senate Ways and Means or House Appropriations. If they hadn't had a hearing then and then got voted out of the committee, they died. So a lot of the bills we were following died on Friday. So our list is a lot shorter. I'm going to share some of them with you quickly. There we go. All right, are you seeing it? My sheet? That's great. Bill 1390 happily passed the House earlier this week. They tried to put some really bad amendments in the bill, but the amendments did not make it through. I must tell you, I listened to the speeches on the floor. There were some really bad things that they said about people with disabilities there. If that bothers you, you might want to go back and watch that and maybe tell legislators what you thought about that, because there was just some really bad information about that bill. But happily, without any bad things added to it, it is moving forward. And so that it passed the House, so now it will go over to the Senate. As Sean mentioned, 1472 and 5393, those bills would close Yakima Valley School and Rainier School. So you're probably asking, but wait a minute, those bills didn't have a hearing and they didn't get heard in the Money Committee. How can that possibly be that they're still alive? Well, they're still alive because they are what is considered necessary to implement the budget. So that means legislators can take those bills anytime they want, and if they want to make it a part of their budget as the way they make those things happen, they can. So those bills are not dead. They're what we call NTIB. There is two bills, 5680 and 1826, which are some really great bills. These bills would establish a right to repair mobility equipment for people with physical disabilities. So that means you could fix your own wheelchair. You don't have to wait. And we know that there can be really long delays in being able to get your medical equipment repaired. So this means you could do it yourself. And both of those bills are in Rules Committee. The Senate bill is on what's called second reading, so that's waiting to be voted on. And the House bill is being reviewed by the Rules Committee. We do understand that some of the wheelchair companies don't like this bill too much. So if this bill is important to you, you might want to speak up and let your legislators know why it's important to you. There are still several education bills that are still alive. There's one 1357 that has funding for inclusionary practices. That bill's in the review committee. 5253. This is really great. This extends school to the end of the person's 22nd year so that they don't have to stop going to school on their birthday. And that's in second reading, so we're happy that that's moving along. And lastly, 5263 is a special education funding bill, and it's in second reading. I think probably the education bill that requires funding, both of those two, 1357 and 5263, will really depend because they cost a lot of money. And if they have not, they may also kind of be there until they decide how they're going to deal with the budget. If they're going to make a new investment of money, they're going to need to figure out how to pay for it. And as you know, we have a big hole. So they're trying to figure out, do we just make a bunch of cuts? Or do we need to make some cuts and maybe add some revenue? Or do we need a lot of new revenue? Revenue means money. Do we need to have more money? And that usually requires them to figure out a way to get more money. And that's usually some kind of a tax or a loophole. And so there's a lot of questions about that. And people are really, that can be really controversial. Some people say, hey, maybe we only want to touch people that have a lot of money, or maybe it should be spread around all of us. So that's the conversation they're having in Olympia is, how are we going to pay for things we want, and how, are there ways that we can trim our budget? So what we're concerned about is whether they trim the budget a lot and that it comes into our services, or are they going to be more prudent and maybe add some more revenue? So those are things to talk to your legislator about how you feel. Let's see, the 1217 is the housing stability bill around limiting rent increases and other kinds of things related to rental. That bill is into review. And let's see. As Sean mentioned, 1130, the prioritization of waivers is still, it passed the House, which we're very happy for. And so it's headed over to Senate Human Services. So probably, I'm guessing we need to be watching to see if that's getting a hearing maybe like next week or so. All the bills, I think by next week, have to be out of what we say the House of Origin. So if the bill started in the House, or it needs to be out of the House, it needs to either needs to have passed out of the House and go over to the Senate. If the bill started in the Senate, it needs to make sure it gets moved over to the House by, I believe, next Friday, the 12th. So we're probably not going to see a lot of hearings this week and next week because they're spending most of their time on the House floor passing bills. 5394, that's a bill that, in a difficult budget year, they're saying they're going to reduce the no paid services caseload, case managers, for those that don't have any services. That bill is in second reading on, in rules, and let's see. And I think that's all the bills. We could look quickly at the budget. I think we've got time.
The community bill there.
Can you see that? Let me make this just a bit bigger.
Hold on, I'm waving my hand.
Okay.
Okay, so last week, Sean, do you have a question?
Yeah, we have a question and I'm blowing.
It's the community protection bill. I think it's in second reading last time I heard. I don't know if it's still moving along.
It passed the House of Origin.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But now it's on its way to the Senate. Yay! I'm happy.
Good. Let's see. On the budget, so last week, Governor Ferguson put out, it wasn't a full budget, but it was like his commentary that he was making on Governor Inslee's budget. And so he looked at Governor Inslee's budget and there were some things that Governor Inslee put in there that he's not. We were kind of scratching our head. It's a little bit different way to do things. What we think happened is he was saying, if he didn't say anything about it, he's going along with what was in Governor Inslee's budget, because we wanted it, we were hoping it would say, yes, close Yakima Valley School and Rainier School. Didn't say that. But what it didn't do is we think that it was silent on it. So we think that it is actually, he's considering that in his budget. So there were some things that he cut out, the professional guardians that we got last year, he cut those out. There was some money that Governor Inslee put in for, really for additional rates for community respite, that was taken out. He wants to end meaningful day services in all, not only in the DDAFHs, but in the typical AFHs as well, ALTSA AFHs. He was going to take away an assisted living rate increase. One other rate increase for planned respite and enhanced respite. Those were rate increases that have not happened yet. So, in other words, things would stay the same. And there was some reduction in school to work. He would eliminate something called Team Child, a program there. Lots of cuts to ECAP. ECAP is for early childhood education. So like preschool programs, and reducing some of the programs. They had a program for early ESET, ECAP, that was cut. This is another one that we're not sure what it means. A 30-bed ward at Western State Hospital, that's a mental institution, is going to be closed. But the patients are going to be transferred to a DDA facility. And we don't know what that facility is, and we don't know what that means. So we're still asking a lot of questions. Apparently it saved money. It would take away the recent increase for children's dental care. And there was a decrease in what was supposed to be increases to ABA therapy rates. It decreases that. And it also takes away some money for children in crisis. Emily, you have a question.
Mike Raymond is here and he has a question. Mike, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I do want the institutions closed. That's
You want
Yes.
everybody to know that you want the institution closed?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Thank you, Mike.
that has been your message for a very long time and continues to be your very important message. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you, Mike. And I think this is one of the times that we need to speak up, because I think there's a chance that we could possibly get 2 of them closed this year, but it's going to take a lot of work. There's a lot of people, particularly state employees, who don't want them to be closed and are speaking out against it. So now is the time to express your opinions about closing the institutions. Okay, let's see. All right, I think those are the main things that are going on.
Thank you, Kathy. And our next speaker is Sean Latham, and he'll be telling us how we could be involved. Go ahead, Sean.
I am the people around. I'm gonna try to build a video. Like normal.
Hi, I'm Sean Latham, the Policy Coordinator for Self-Advocates in Leadership.
And I'm Jessica Renner from Self Advocates in Leadership.
We want to thank everyone for taking your time out today to join us for Advocacy Days. We're here to talk to you about how to become a trusted resource for legislators on issues affecting your life. Even though your elected officials represent you, they can't do this very well if they don't know what you want. We want to encourage you to contact your legislators throughout session, but especially this week, about the issues that matter to you.
That's right. With so many topics for legislators to learn about, your knowledge of developmental disabilities helps them to do their job. You are the expert in telling your story and how it relates to decisions they are making. Here are some tips to help you make the most impact. Your time with legislators, staff, or aides is short, and your message should be too. When you communicate, sum up what the issue is and why it's important to you. Have a specific request related to a bill or budget item. Attack the problem, not the person. Follow up with a thank you. By doing this, you greatly increase your credibility and strengthen your legislative relationships. Bottom line, stick to what you know, which is your life, and how the issue affects you.
Here are some ways that you can reach out to your legislators. You can email them and their legislative assistant about your priorities. You can contact them through the legislative hotline phone number, which is 1-800-562-6000, and ask to leave a message for them. You can also share your opinion on a particular bill by using the hotline. We also encourage you to request either an in-person meeting with your legislators or a meeting with them over Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Please reach out to the legislative assistant of the legislator to request a meeting. You can watch the legislature at work on TVW, either on your TV, if you have the channel, or online at tvw.org. Another way you can participate is by signing up to testify at legislative hearings. For each hearing, you can sign up for the individual bills as pro, meaning you are for the bill, con, meaning you are against the bill, or other if you have concerns with the bill you generally like.
Let me now take you through the process using the Washington State Legislative website that can be found at leg.wi.gov. On the website under the menu, click on the menu item that states Bills, Meetings, and Session. From there, scroll down to the section titled Upcoming Committee Meetings and click on the link titled Sign into a Committee Meeting. Next, choose if you are testifying in a House hearing or testifying in a Senate hearing. We all have the choice to testify in person, testify by video remotely, or we can submit written testimony or just state what our position is on the bill.
After you pick one of the options, you will be taken to the form to register. You will need to fill out your position, your name, your email, your address, your phone number, and your organization, if you are representing one. It also asks you if you will testify on a panel or not. If you are testifying on a panel, it will ask you to fill in the names of the other panelists. The other box to make note of is the pronunciation box. If you want your name said right, you can sound it out in that box. Please check the box "I'm not a robot" at the end of the form, and then it's time to hit Submit Registration. Once you submit your registration, you will receive an email from a committee staff email address. Please read this email carefully and add the meeting to your desired calendar using the links in the email. From there, make sure you are ready to testify.
Don't forget about social media. A lot of legislators have accounts on Facebook and Twitter where you can comment or watch live stream chats and virtual town halls.
It's so important to stay informed and involved. Participate in virtual advocacy days, sign up for the ARC of Washington's action alerts, get updates at arcwa.org, and follow on Facebook. Connect with local parent and self-advocate groups. And remember, change is made by those who show up.
Okay. So we're back all I guess. Okay.
This is Sean. Because you heard most of my thoughts earlier, I'm just going to mention some of the action steps that you can do this week and throughout the session. First, we have a rally starting at 1 p.m. by the Capitol steps. If you are in town, please stop by and join us. Second, tell the state legislators to support HB 1472 and SB 5393 in their budget discussions. We need to shut down Rayner School and Yakima Valley School. Third, tell state legislators to support HB 1130, the waiver prioritization bill. Fourth, tell state legislators to support I/DD services and supports in their final budget. Fifth, please contact your Congress members not to cut Medicaid, it matters. Lastly, please contact your friends, family members and neighbors to inform them about I/DD issues. Like every week, we encourage you this week to reach out to your legislators about education and the program and services needed for kids to succeed. I will add again, it's very important to reach out to all of our legislators to educate them about our issues. Sharing your personal stories is one of the best ways for your legislators to get to know what you need. For more information about these and other issues you learned about today, I'm going to post this week's one-pager in the chat. Also, again, please see the ARC's bills of interests. Lastly, I want to encourage you to fill out our Advocacy Day survey. This helps us understand what you like and what you didn't like about Advocacy Day, so we can get better and better. You have the option of filling out the Zoom survey that you should see on the screen now, or alternatively, you can click on the links I posted in the chat. There will be an English and Spanish link. Let us know after if you need any assistance in filling out the survey. With that, I will thank everybody for coming today, especially our great speakers. A few of us will stay for a few minutes after, if people have questions, and remember, change is made by those who show up. Thank you.